inside now because it keeps spotting a rain. I've decided to put a hefty piece of wood across the centre of the bench to make it stronger, because I'm going to be doing heavy work like hammering and stuff on it. And so I've got this odd piece of wood, an offcut from somewhere else, and I'm going to put that across the middle. A little tip when you're doing it: if you get your piece of wood and nail a bit of plywood just like this, you can see that, hold it like that, nail a bit of plywood on the end, each end like that. You can then take your piece of wood, drop it into where you're going to put it. The plywood will hold it exactly in place. Otherwise you're going to have a job where you're trying to hold this and put a screw in all at the same time, and it's not easy because this will keep dropping and you won't get it lined up. And then you can get your screw. I've already put a pilot hole in this one, and then it's quite simple, except the wood's pretty hard, so it's going to be quite hard going. It's actually soft wood, I don't know what it is, but it's really, really hard. And it's a bit knotty, but it doesn't matter for what I'm using it here. So I've got both hands on the... So you see, I've done that one. Now I'm going to just drill those 2 bottom holes. It's really hard actually. If you hear me puffing, it's because I am. It's quite hard, that, really hard. Well, there you get the idea. There's 2 reasons for putting that on there. One, it makes the whole thing stronger, makes the bench stronger. It makes the top stronger for hammering, as I mentioned. But there is another reason as well. I don't want to buy any wood. I've got some old planks, scaffolding planks, but they're pretty ropey. I found this piece of wood here. Whoops. This is a piece I found in the shed. It's an old piece I acquired from somewhere. It's a really hefty piece. And what I'm going to do, obviously this is the wrong way round at the moment. This is the back. So this one will go on the front. So I'm going to put, you can imagine this is the front. I should fit this piece, because it's a good hefty piece. I'll put this on the front of the bench like that. Okay, and that's really, really strong, because that's where I do most of the hammering and stuff. I've got these old scaffolding planks, and they are pretty ropey to be honest, but the timber's sound. I've cut the bad bit off, the edge that was bad, and that, as you can see, that will go along there. And then I've got 2 more. There's one here, but he is a bit ropey, the end's ropey. This isn't very good, and it's not going to be long enough. And I've got another one, a really long one, which is just as bad. So what I've decided to do, I'm going to use them, but I shall cut them in half and pick the best piece, and then I shall put a join in the middle here, because I want to use up the old scaffolding planks. Now you'll probably notice that, I'll move that to the back so you can see, because that's really far. That scaffolding plank is a bit shallower than the front. Now obviously it's hard work to cut that down to size of that, which would be the best way. Also, it's a shame because that's a good thick piece, good for hammering on. So what I should do, I should fit that one on first, and then when that's done and it comes to putting these on, I'll simply size it and cut some strips of wood, which I shall lay on top of there all around it, so to higher this part, so this back part will be slightly higher than the front, and then when I put these on top of the strips that I put on, they should be flush with each other like that, so you get a nice flat bench. That's the principle anyway. I don't like wasting my wood. I'm actually mean with it. If somebody comes and says, oh, have you got a bit of wood on? Well, I'm not sure about that. I've got the front board on now, the thicker one, and I've cut some strips of wood out here, which I'm going to nail on around to bring the old scaffold planks, which are thinner, up to the same or roughly the same level as the front board. This is the back of the bench, by the way. Only one of the boards was decent enough. This one wasn't too bad, so I'm using that on the middle, and with those strips that brings it roughly up to the same level as this one on the front. For the back piece, the boards are very cupped and worn in places, and I didn't want to do that. So what I've done, I've cut them down to the middle and made them as 2 smaller ones, which I shall fit on like this, because I think that'll be perfect. With my join here, you see, and then I can put them on like this, those 2 on that end, and then these other 2 will go down on this end here. Now, having made the bench and got a nice level top on it, I think what I'm going to do is drill some holes in it. I know that sounds a bit stupid, but what my thinking is that this is going to be outside in the rain, and it's better if I've got some holes in the top. It'll allow the rainwater to run through and down to the ground. Otherwise, it'll just lie on the top and soak into the wood. Well, that's my thinking anyway, so I reckon I'm going to put a few holes in it. But before I do that, now, whilst I just said that I'm going to drill some holes in the top to let the water through, I'm also, before I do that, going to fill these cracks in. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what an idiot. Why on earth is he bothering to fill cracks in and then drill holes in to let the water through? Well, the simple answer is these cracks in the timber, on the top side of the timber, not the underneath, and water will gather in there and lie in that crack. So the best idea is to put some of this heavy duty filler in any of these larger cracks to stop the water actually running in there and lying in the timber and rotting it from the inside out. This is what I'm going to use to fill the cracks in the top. I don't know if you ever used it before, but it's absolutely brilliant, this stuff. I don't mean this particular brand. This is Everbuild. This is in the UK, don't forget. There are other brands and makes which are perfectly good and exactly the same. Anyway, I'll just show you what I'm going to do with it, because it really is good stuff. But you've got to remember, when you're using it, it sets very quickly, hard very quickly. That's why I like using it, actually, because you can put this on and in about 10 minutes you can be rubbing it down and ready to paint. It's amazing stuff, but you've got to do it really, really quickly, otherwise it will dry up. It's completely useless. So what you want to do is don't mix too much at a time. What annoys me, you've got a whacking great big tin. If you look inside, I haven't used much, but it's only half full. You get one tube of this, but these, I've got more than one because they're left over from other ones. Just mix a little bit up at a time. Get a piece of plywood or anything, a bit of plastic. I say don't be too much. I'm just going to have a small lump on the end of my tool there. I'll put that other piece in. Oops. Right, just pop it onto the edge of the board like that with your knife, and then squeeze a little bit of the hardener. This is the hardener. Don't put too much on, you don't need much. Just squeeze a little bit on here, if there's any in there. That's plenty. Put the cap on, put that out of the way, and then all you got to do is just mix it up, just like you're mixing cement, really, only on a much smaller scale. You'll think it's not doing anything, but it's amazing how quick it will start setting very quickly. You'll soon find out, because it'll get hard to put in. You don't need too much mixing. That's it. I don't know where the camera's on this crack. I'm just going to put some in. It's not very exciting, this, but you might as well watch while I'm doing it. I'm just poking it into the crack in the timber. I say this is not precise. It's only a bit of a bodge, really, and it's probably pointless. But let's face it, doesn't do any harm, does it? It might just stop the water going in for a while. It is pretty hard stuff. Once it's in there, it's in there. It is really good. I've used it for lots of things, on window sills and stuff, jobs outside, because it's impervious to the wet. It will set rock hard, and I mean rock hard, and it's already starting to set. I'll just move the camera back a bit. This isn't very exciting. I'll probably cut a lot of this out. I'm just filling the major gaps, that's all. There you go. That's the main one. I don't think there's another one along the other end. I'll probably have to mix a bit more up. I'll leave that filler to dry a little while, and then I'll get the sander on it and just sand it down. But basically the most part of it's finished now. Next job I got to do is find an old vise to put on there. I don't want a posh fancy one. Any old one will do, just because it's going to go outside. But the conundrum is, which end do I put it on? Do I put it on the left hand side or on the right hand side? I tend to think I'm going to put it on the right hand side of the bench because I'm right handed, and when I'm doing angle grinding I think it'd be easier with the vise on the right hand side, and I can chop off over the edge. I'm going to have a root about in one of my sheds and see what vices I can find. I found 4 vices, surface requirements. Over the years, many years, I'm not saying how many, I've acquired quite a few because people don't want them, they chuck them out. And all these vices you can see in front of you are ones that I've put in the shed at various times because people have given me, and I haven't got the heart. They don't want them. In fact, the last 2, the big 2 record vices, were going to be thrown away. Problem is, I've got to choose one to put on the bench. This first little vise, this is like a whole video on vices, isn't it? Let's just move the camera in a bit. I don't know what brand it is. It's a weird looking thing. I don't know where it came from. I got a feeling it was my grandfather's. So it goes back to 1900, something like that. It just says Anvil on the side. There's no sort of maker's name that I can find. And that's a pretty poor condition. I might put that one on this bench because it'll be outside and I'm not going to worry about it too much. The next one along is a Woden. I quite like Woden stuff. They've gone out of business now, but they make quite a few British tools and things. I'm a bit dubious of putting that one out and getting it spoiled. So we'll move along the row. I'll move that bit away. And then we've got the inevitable records. These are the record number 3. British made, obviously. There's the other one there. That one looks a bit oily, but it looks in better condition. A friend of mine gave me that. He didn't want it. It was his father's. He's sorting his father's garage out and he brought a load of junk over for me. Shouldn't call it junk. It's not junk. Junk is basically stuff in the hands of the wrong people. It's always useful to somebody. Anyway, I didn't really want it, but I didn't want him to scrap it. So I said, yeah, I'll have it. And I haven't found a home for it yet. And then I've got this one, which I've had for years, which is covered in paint at the moment. So it's a choice of what I'm going to put on here, and I might put that little tiny one on, or I might put the record one with the paint on. Well, I've made a decision. I'm going to put this little old vise on. It's only a small one, but I'm not too worried about it. It's a really old thing, so I won't worry if it's out in the rain too much. If I put one of my nice record vices, I'd be worried about getting it ruined. So I'm going to fit this one on. I'm going to fit the vise around there. I can't put it too near the end because the leg will be in the way of the bolt unless I screw it down, which won't be strong enough. Bolts are better because it'll keep it solid on the bench, so I've got to keep it a little way away from the leg on that side, which is about there. So that's about a good position. You don't want it sticking out too far because you'll keep catching yourself, but you don't want it too far in that the handle's awkward to get at. I'm thinking about like that. What I'm going to do to mark the holes is a bit of a bodge. Don't watch this because you ain't supposed to do this, but I'm just clouting the bolts. That's the easiest way of marking the positions because they're exactly the right size. So there, I've got those two. There's another one under the back there. I'll just show you that one. Probably people watching this are thinking, what the hell is he showing all this nonsense for? We don't want to know that. We already know that. I like these sort of drills. Again, this came from my uncle. They would have been thrown away. Decent quality. Marples Ridgeway. William Marples, actually. 3/8 of an inch. Just perfect for the job. And they don't have to go through the wood quick, these as well. Better than an ordinary twist drill. So now I'm going to... Let's hope it's in the right position. Look at that. Lovely job. What could be better? Well, that's those two done. Now what I'm going to do is offer the vise up. Pop the bolts through. Let's hope they fit alright. Now that'll just locate the vise there, and now I can use that back hole. I can put a bolt in there and then take this off. Ah, it won't come off now. I didn't want to drill through the metal vise because it would blunt my bit on the edges. Oh, come on. I wanted to use the right size bolts because the holes in the vise are 3/8 of an inch roughly, and the bolts are snug fit. If you're tempted to use a smaller bolt, I mean if you haven't got the right size then it doesn't matter, but if you put a smaller bolt in a larger hole, what's going to happen is it'll be alright, but you'll find it annoying because when you're using the vise it'll just keep rocking about like that. It won't stay tight on the bench and it can be annoying. So I'm just going to drill that last hole. Nearly dropped my drill there. Drill that last hole. It's really nice using these drills. Then it's just a question of popping the vise on. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'll just pop it on and make sure it's all right. Just have to go underneath. I'll put the nuts on in a moment. That's it. Now all I've got to do is go underneath and pop the washers and nuts on and tighten it up. Paddy seems happy, folks. He's quite content, sat there watching what I'm doing. I'm just going to go over the top of the bench with a flat wheel and an angle grinder just to level down any lumps and bumps. Now you can see why I need an outdoor bench, all the mess and dust that comes up from that. Imagine doing that indoors. Well, what a mess that made. Just look at my trousers. I'm absolutely covered in it. I've got the vice on now and look at that, it's as firm as a rock. My God, that was a job getting those nuts on underneath. Only got one problem now. The problem is, it looks quite a nice bench. I almost don't want to leave it outside. Feels like I want to put it in one of the sheds, but that'll defeat the object of it. Well, that's it then. One bench finished and creosoted. Or shall I say clear-coated, because they don't do creosote now in the UK. Anyway, there you go. The only thing I haven't done is drill holes in the top. I couldn't bring myself to do it somehow. I'm going to leave it and see what happens. If the water gathers on now, I might drill some holes in it, but at the moment I'm going to leave it as it is. I'm almost wishing I could put it inside now. I don't want to leave it out in the rain, because it's going to rain tomorrow. It's going to get all wet and horrible. But the purpose was to make an outdoor bench, so I could use it outdoors. So it seems a bit daft putting it indoors again, but there you go. It's not a bad bench for virtually nothing. It's all second-hand stuff, recycled timber. The only cost is the drop of creosote, which I had anyway. All the rest of it was from recycled timber and screws that I was given. One thing I meant to say was that I've cut out some small squares of roofing felts, just some odd bits I had. And what I should do is, when the bench is in place, I'll put a piece of this under each of the 4 legs, and that'll protect the bottom of the leg from rotting away from the damp on the ground. I usually do that with things outside because it does help make it last longer. Well, there we are. The bench is now in its place, pushed against the wall, right in front of the workshop window. I've got a power supply socket at the back at the right hand side, a vice on there. What could be better? I'm quite pleased with that actually. It's not a bad bench for total cost of nothing. Well, a bit of time. I suppose I spent about a day making it in all, apart from cutting the hedge in the middle of doing it. It's all recycled materials, and I've made something useful out of something that would otherwise not be used, so what's not to like? And I can do outside jobs now. Bye for now.